We're so glad we were able to get the highest ranking law enforcement official in the state here tonight. And equally thankful that we're able to get the highest ranking law enforcement official in the county here tonight, a man who's been working on this program for some time and helping to solve the problem with the folks from Team Recovery and his DART team. He'll tell you a little bit about that in just a second. He worked for the Toledo Police Department for a number of years after leaving the United States Army, Sheriff's Department, and in 2013 became the Lucas County Sheriff. Please welcome John Tharp.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight. I do want to start out, we missed one person. We have a lieutenant that is in charge of our DART unit, Robert Cromick Jr. Please stand up, let everybody see you so they'll know who you are. There you go. Yeah, he's the bald one. Right. So I was asked to actually just come and talk about how the DART unit got started and how what we're doing and why we're doing it. But some years ago when I first became sheriff, is that there's no master's degrees on how to be sheriff. Actually, I was shocked when I became sheriff. Nobody else wanted a job, so I became sheriff, and nobody ran against me. So as I was looking at what needed to be done and how it needed to be done, one thing I realized is that we need to get into the trenches with the troops. So I would go out and still go out at night and ride with the road patrol, talk with the officers about their families, about their likes, dislikes, what needs to be done, and also to go into the jail at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, spend 3 hours or so, not to check on anybody, but to learn and to share information and to get from the officers things that they need to share with us so we can do a better job. But every night when I would go into jail, I would notice there were 1 or 2 people that was overdosing, that had overdosed, that had been in the jail and was going through detox. So they may not had overdosed before they got to the jail, but when they get into the jail, they're locked up. They can't get any medication. They can't get heroin. They can't get whatever medication they need immediately, so they go through detox. So these people, I noticed one night there was a young fellow, and he was in his 30s, clean-cut looking young guy, and he was laying on the floor. He was screaming and crying. He was in a cell. We had a nurse with him, a couple correction officers. His arms were flailing, his legs were flailing. He was vomiting, urinating, and just screaming like you wouldn't believe. You know, I thought I'd seen everything from working in the narcotics squad for so many years for Toledo Police and the homicide squad and being a Vietnam veteran, a combat medic. I thought I had seen everything, but I had never seen anybody go through a detox. And so I asked the officers, I said, how many people are doing this? How many are you seeing? And they said, every night we're seeing 2, 3 are coming in, and they go through detox when they're here. And so I'm wondering, why aren't we hearing about this in law enforcement? We're not hearing about it. So we talked to the fire chiefs, and the fire chief says every night they're going to numerous calls of people that are overdosing. And what happens is that parents and family and loved ones, they don't want to call. Now think about this. If your 17-year-old daughter just shot a needle in her arm, stuck a needle in her arm and shot up heroin, how do you call as a mother or father or a loved one, how do you call a complete stranger, a dispatcher, and say, my daughter just shot up heroin? So it was the stigma of it, the embarrassment of it. They didn't want people to know that their children were heroin addicts. They didn't want their loved ones to know that their husband or their wife or whoever it was a heroin addict. So they would say, my daughter can't breathe, or my loved one can't breathe. Send a rescue. And so rescue would show up, and they would take them to the emergency rooms. They would be released from the emergency rooms, and nobody would ever know about it. So the fire chiefs all committed that what they would do is that they would contact our dispatcher on every overdose that came in. And so they started contacting us, and we thought, what are we going to do about this in law enforcement? What's going to be our role? Well, when I look back on my history in law enforcement, starting back in 1972, is that I recalled the only people that I had ever seen that had died, there was 3 of them, and the former mayor, Mike Collins, and I were working together, and we responded to an overdose, checked the safety of the occupant, But we entered this apartment, and there were 3 people that were dead. One young person in the kitchen, one in the living room, and another one in the bathtub. And all 3 were dead. We as officers, the only thing we did is we made out a report as to what we observed, and we called the coroner. The coroner came, took the bodies, and that was it. That's all we did in law enforcement. And as I was watching that young fellow that night that was screaming and crying, I thought, this is sick. We in law enforcement, as big as we are, we're not doing anything. What should we be doing? So we became dedicated to respond and try to get people into treatment and to try to take people to recovery. So we started out with just 2 officers, and they were so overwhelmed we couldn't keep up. The numbers were coming in left and right. So we talked to the county commissioners. The county commissioners, and I give them credit, they said, go ahead and put a few other officers in that unit if you think that you need them. Well, we put them in, and we were just overwhelmed, and that we didn't have enough officers. So the Attorney General DeWine that was just talking about the call that we made to him, we called the office. He was on his way to Cleveland. He called back, and he said, Sheriff, what is it you need? What do you want? What do you want to do? And so I shared with him what our philosophy was, is that if we could respond, and if we could get people to detox, if we could get them to recovery, we could drive them, we could do that, and we could make a difference, we could save lives. He said, let me give you a call back. So evidently, Krista, he had called his office, and they had told him, they gave him some information. He called me back. He said, John, he said, this has never been done anywhere in the state of Ohio, and has never been done anywhere in the United States. If you think it can be done, just send me a letter as to what it is you want to do. It doesn't have to be a long grant, and thank God I wouldn't know how to do a long grant. So I sent him a couple paragraph requests of what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. So he got his team together, and he brought in approximately $700,000 into Lucas County for recovery beds, and also for some of our officers that we put into the unit. So again, we didn't really know much of how to deal with addicts. You know, we're cops, we're law enforcement. That's not what we do for a living. We arrest people. And that's what you want us to do, is you want us to arrest people. You want us to arrest bad people, and we do it, and we do it well. But we don't know how to deal with addicts. So we reached out to so many different agencies, and they helped us. In fact, there was one agency here tonight, Matt Russo from Renewed Minds. I don't know if he's still here or not, but he came out personally, the head of the agency, he came out at 2 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, midnight, and to our roll calls, and started teaching our officers what to say, how to say it, what to do, what buttons to push, what buttons not to push, to encourage people to go to detox with them and to recovery with them. So still, we didn't have enough officers. So we started out with 2 officers. Right now, we have 19 in that unit, 19 officers in the unit. But I wanted to just talk about how we begged other police departments throughout the Lucas County to help us out, because it's all over the entire county. It's just not Toledo, it's just not Oregon, it's just not Maumee, it's all over. But the Oregon Police Department, the police chief of Oregon, jumped in right away without hesitation or delay and gave us a couple of part-time officers. Then the University of Toledo, they have a police department. They gave us a part-time officer into the unit. The St. Vincent's Mercy Hospital, but St. Vincent's has a police department. We have them deputized, and they gave us a full-time officer into that unit. Springfield Fire Department now is in our unit. They come in and they work with us, and they do follow-ups for us. Also, the Waterville Township Police Department has helped out. Little Waterville Township, they understand the problem. They see what is going on. They know they have overdoses of people coming from Waterville that are coming into the hospitals and out to St. Luke's and down at St. Vincent's. Lourdes University, and now get this one. This has got to be a first. The Lucas County Library. The Lucas County Library has a security force, and some of those officers, we have them deputized, and they have volunteered to come in and work with us. But you know, when we first started this unit, is that a lot of my peers, I tell you, I had a lot of guff from my peers of saying, look, Tharp, this is soft. You know, these, just lock up these scumbags. They're the ones that stuck the needle in their arm. Nobody stuck that needle in their arm for them. They've chosen to do this. But you know, it comes down to doing the right thing. And we in law enforcement, if we know what the right thing to do is that, and we don't do it, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, that is soft. That's soft when we don't do the right thing. I was listening to a gentleman down in Columbus the other day. I spoke at a seminar down there, and Colonel McKnight, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was one of the people in that Black Hawk Down. And he was talking about values, and we were all discussing values. And one of the values of the military, and I remember them talking about it in the military so much, is personal courage. Personal courage. So we all know about integrity. We all know about trust. We all know about doing the right thing. But that personal courage, if we have the personal courage to do the right thing, no matter who's mad at you, who's upset with you, who's disgusted with you because you didn't make it easy for them, then we haven't done our job. And that's what we have to live with in law enforcement, is a personal courage. And if we don't have that personal courage to do the right thing, then we're in the wrong business. And I applaud all the officers in the DART unit. And also, Matt Bell and his group that has worked so hard to step up and go with us and help us to get people into detox. I wanted to share a little story with you, is that there was one, and we never wash our hands of anybody that we know that has relapsed. Just because somebody relapsed, we've found and learned that that's part of recovery. But one of our officers had been working with a guy for about, I don't know, he was clean for like 180 days. And finally he relapsed. He relapsed, and he called the deputy, and he had told him, he said, look, I relapsed. He said, I just shot up with heroin. He said, would you come and help me? You helped me before, but I just shot up. Will you come and get me? And he did. He came, he got him, and was able to get him clean again, was able to help him. But that person had said, you know, of all the 8 years that I've been shooting heroin, he said, I never ever dreamed, or I never thought that I would shoot up heroin and turn around and call the cops on myself. But we will continue to do what we need to do. And Scott Silak, too, I wanted to talk about him from Board of Mental Health. We have learned so much from Scott. And we talked about the HIPAA issue. And when we first started, people were telling us all the reasons why we couldn't do this. You know, you ever have those problems that you wanted to do something, but nobody ever had the solutions? It was always about the problem. It's not about the problem. It's about the solution. And the solution is to get the job done. But and it was right in front of our face. They said, it's a HIPAA problem. You know, is that the cops come, you can't give that information. But shooting heroin and overdosing, that is a drug investigation. That is a felony drug investigation. That is the same as if you're investigating a homicide or a shooting or a stabbing. That's not about HIPAA whatsoever. What we decide to do with that case, or whether we decide to arrest or not to arrest, that is our decision, and we can make that decision, and we have made that decision. This unit it's bumping right about 2,000 people, hasn't it, Lieutenant? 2,000 individuals that we've worked with. And we've had a lot of successes, and we've had a lot of failures, but we will continue to do what we're supposed to do. But this unit needs at least 10 more officers. So we're bumping right around 20 officers in the unit. We need 10 more officers in this unit. And we will continue looking for grants. We will continue doing fundraisings, and we've had so much that people that have stepped up and helped us is that car dealerships have given us cars. Places like title companies has given us a percentage of their Louisville title, has given us a percentage of every closing they have, and they said that they would give us that percentage for the next 4 years for that to go towards the DART team. We had Brondes, we had Yark, we had Grogan Motors. They gave us cars because addicts do not want to get into these marked units. They don't want to get into these Crown Vics. Those black and white Crown Vics, they stand out like a sore thumb, but they don't want to get in those cars when they've just are going to detox. They don't want to feel like that they're informants. And with the idea of the informants is that our officers do not ever try to make informants out of somebody that is an addict. But what happens, and we talked about this at the very beginning, is that when we build relationships and people trust us, and it takes about 45 days when people trust us and they know that law enforcement is not going to burn them, is that the information are coming to these officers. It is unbelievable about heroin dealers in our community. They are obtaining more information. They have more education through addicts that will help them if they don't think that they're going to get burned. We just had the Metro Drug Unit just had a 52-count indictment that came out of some of the major players in the north end and the east side of Toledo. And all this information came because of the DART officers working so closely with addicts and helping these individuals. So I could talk forever, but we have some more important people than me that are going to discuss this heroin epidemic. But thank you, folks, for all you do. God bless you.